In Ecuador, indigenous movements from the province of Cotopaxi held its first march against the administration of President Daniel Noboa, claiming for increased security and for the right to implement their own justice system. In Palestine, humanitarian organizations and civilians continue to condemn the plans of Israel of carrying out a ground invasion in Rafah. And the Russian government described as economic banditry the European Union's plans to use the profits from frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Friday, in the Ecuadorian province of Cotopaxi, the indigenous movements held its first march against the administration of President Daniel Noboa. Representatives of the native peoples marched through the streets of La Tuacunga, claiming for increased security and for the right to implement their own justice system. Also, demonstrators denounced the lack of health services, education, employment, and the increase of the value-added tax introduced by Noboa. This is considered the first protest of indigenous movement against the administration of President Noboa and his measures to tackle organized crime. Also in Ecuador, the authorities are running security operations in state prisons, mainly in the El Litoral prison due to inmate links with organized crime. Regional Police Chief Freddy Goyes said Friday that during the Carnival holiday, they will continue with searches and censuses in the country's prisons. He said they will continue taking action against inmates with links to organized crime. Since January 9th, the Ecuadorian government is waging a war against organized crime. So far, they have executed 1,341 arrest warrants, with some 200 of those detainees allegedly being involved in terrorist actions. In El Salvador, the Supreme Electoral Court has officially announced the victory of Nayib Bukele, despite reports of over 47% abstentions. Bukele has become the first president to be re-elected despite a constitutional ban on that regard. They have announced that after counting 100% of the votes casted last February 4th, 2.7 million Salvadorans out of more than 6 million registered voters favored Nayib Bukele and his New Ideas Party. The announcement came amidst alleged irregularity and fraud claims made by social organizations. Those claims add to the complaints made regarding alleged failures in the automated voting system. Nicaragua congratulated the government and people of Iran on the occasion of the 45th anniversary of the Iranian Islamic Revolution. In an official letter, President Daniel Ortega and Vice President Rosario Murillo conveyed on behalf of the people and government of reconciliation and national unity of the Republic of Nicaragua the nation's most sincere congratulations to the Iranian leadership and heroic people. The letter wrote, "Our brotherly peoples of Iran and Nicaragua have traveled a common path in defense of their fundamental rights and the closeness of our convictions for the creation of a world of peace, justice, and prosperity." The letter added that Nicaragua reaffirms its commitment to continue strengthening the bonds of friendship, fraternity, solidarity, and cooperation that unite both peoples and governments. In Peru, around 334 areas in the Central Highlands were declared as critical due to the danger of landslides and floods caused by heavy rainfall. According to the National Service of Meteorology and Hydrology of Peru, moderate to heavy rainfall is expected in the highlands and moderate to extreme intensity in the north coast from this Sunday to Tuesday, February 13th. Also, they warned about the possibility of precipitation with hail in localities above 2,800 meters above sea level. There will be snow in areas above 4,000 meters above sea level in the central and southern highlands. In view of this situation, the agency called on the population to protect and reinforce the roof of their homes, as well as to establish an early warning system by means of whistles, bells, alarms, sirens, or loudspeakers in coordination with local authorities. In Argentina, more than 387 people and 18 Reversas brigadists continue working to extinguish the fire in the Los Alerces National Park located in Chubut. The Department of Fire Communications and Emergencies reported that the fire in the national park affected at least 7,888 hectares and continues active. Likewise, the National Meteorological Service reported a storm with electrical shocks from the north of Neuquén and stated that due to more monitoring for the possibility of extending to the south of Chubut. In this sense, tourist services work normally and motorists are recommended to drive with caution on the route near the national park. On the other hand, a yellow alert has been issued in 7 provinces and an orange alert in Buenos Aires after heavy rainfall. In this sense, the National Meteorological Service forecasts rainfall values between 50 and 80 millimeters that could be exceeded. The scientific entity recommended to stay away from coastal areas and light poles of power lines. It is recommended to always have an emergency backpack ready with a flashlight, radio, documents, and telephone. And with teleSUR, you can now celebrate one of the largest festivals in the South American continent. Gladys Quesada brings you all the details in this Carnival Time 2024. Tune in every day this week at 7 p.m. Caracas time through our Facebook Live at teleSUR English Official and X account at teleSUR English and discover our most colorful celebrations. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In the Gaza Strip, humanitarian organizations and Palestinian civilians condemn the plans of Israel's extreme right-wing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of carrying out a ground invasion in Rafah. Netanyahu ordered the occupation army to initiate plans for evacuating over 1 million Palestinian civilians in the city of Rafah, the last available shelter for the displaced residents of the Gaza Strip, before launching a massive operation. An estimated 1.5 million people are currently crowded in Rafah in unhealthy conditions and suffering from hunger after fleeing from the siege in other parts of the region. In this context, organizations such as Doctors Without Borders have claimed that a ground operation on the site would be catastrophic. Palestinian Red Crescent announced the arbitrary detention of its staff in the middle of an invasion of Israeli regime forces to Al-Amal Hospital in the city of Han Yunis. The Israeli army attacked and stormed the health center for 10 hours, damaging medical equipment and facilities, arresting, interrogating, and beating staff. Additionally, they looted patients and companions who were in the place, forbidding them to drink water or use the bathroom, while confiscating laptops and wireless communication devices, the only communication methods available due to the failure of telecommunication service in the territory for several weeks. At least 110 Palestinians have been killed by Tel Aviv's army in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours, in the middle of bombings in different cities of the occupied territory. In the city of Rafah, a military ground operation attacked 25 refugees. Meanwhile, troops raided the towns of Han Yunis, Deir al-Balah, and the Sawada refugee camp. The Palestinian government denounced assassinations and extrajudicial executions committed by the Israeli army in the occupied territories. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a statement condemning the death of 17-year-old Moaz Bani Shamsa in an incident that occurred in Nablus, in the north of the occupied West Bank. The entity criticized Israel's actions, which enabled the expropriation and confiscation of Palestinian life and land in flagrant violation of international law. It also rejected the attacks and looting by Tel Aviv regime against homes in Gaza and the West Bank. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, president of Turkey, reiterated his rejection of Israeli attacks on Gaza and reaffirmed his commitment to the struggle of the Palestinian people. In his speech addressing the Youth Forum, sponsored by the Islamic Cooperation Organization, the Turkish leader stressed that his country is doing its utmost to provide humanitarian and medical aid to Palestinians, while denouncing Israel's measures to prevent these resources from being delivered to them. He also pointed out that there are significant efforts underway to ensure that crimes against humanity and war offenses committed by Israel are not ignored at the international level. In this regard, Erdogan reaffirmed that his country will continue the struggle until an independent, sovereign, and territorially integrated Palestinian state established on the basis of the 1967 borders, with Jerusalem as its capital city. The United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees denounced that Israel is blocking a shipment of humanitarian aid sent by the UN to feed 1.1 million Palestinians. The organization expressed through social networks that a shipment of food is stuck in an Israeli port due to recent restrictions imposed by the Tel Aviv authorities. Meanwhile, millions of Palestinian families faced lack of food and malnutrition. In this regard, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees detailed that over 1,049 containers of rice, flour, chickpeas, sugar, and vegetable oil cannot enter the Palestinian enclave. The number of Palestinians killed in Israeli attacks since the start of hostilities in the Gaza Strip increased to 28,064. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, as quoted by Al Jazeera, the number of wounded has risen to 67,611. In the last 24 hours, the Israeli occupation has committed 16 massacres against families in the Gaza Strip, killing 117 and wounding 152, the agency added. The government of Egypt reinforced security on the border with Gaza due to the Israeli offensive against the Palestinian region. According to Egyptian security forces, in the last 2 weeks, 40 tanks and armored personnel carriers were sent to northeastern Sinai. The deployment took place in the face of the advance of Israeli offensive against southern Gaza, mainly against the city of Rafah, leaving the Palestinians without a place to shelter from the Zionist onslaught. In this regard, the government of Egypt has repeatedly warned that if Israeli forces the Palestinians to leave their country or takes control of the border between Gaza and northern Sinai, it will be understood as an act of war by Tel Aviv. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. The Russian government described as economic banditry the European Union's plans to use the profits from frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs expressed in a press release their disapproval of what they describe as a new attempt by Western countries to confiscate their sovereign reserves. They also denounced the plans of the joint West to use Russian assets to support Kiev, since the bloc's debt is already huge. Russian authorities also reminded that all such actions constitute a serious violation of international law. The Russian anti-aircraft defense intercepted and destroyed on Saturday 3 Ukrainian drones flying over the province of Bryansk. The Ministry of Defense informed that Moscow prevented a new terrorist attack by Ukrainian forces. The agency detailed that no human lives were lost, as there were unmanned aerial vehicles. Russian civilians denounced the regular impact of shells, the presence of drones, and other attacks by Kiev on the Russian provinces bordering Ukraine, Belgorod, Bryansk, and Kursk, forcing these populations to seek refuge elsewhere. North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un stated on Friday that in case of a conflict, he will occupy South Korea. This was stated during his speech at the 76th anniversary of the North Korean Army. The southern neighbors have been defined by Pyongyang as the main and most harmful enemy. In fact, the North Korean parliament on Wednesday approved the termination of one of the few agreements that survived the escalation of tensions, which is the economic cooperation agreement with South Korea. Kim called on his forces to be combat ready based on powerful military potential and said peace is not to be begged for. He also called for the destruction of symbols, advocating the idea of a possible peaceful reunification with its neighbor. In Italy, hundreds of farmers with their tractors gathered for days on the outskirts of Rome, decided on Friday to finally enter the capital and reach the city center to protest the lack of government attention. After a week-long rally with some 250 tractors in Via Nomentana, north of Rome, a small group of farmers decided to head towards the historic center, arriving peacefully at the Colosseum with 5 tractors escorted by police patrols. Farmers have been peacefully protesting for days all over Italy, mainly to express their dissatisfaction with the lack of attention from the Minister of Agriculture and with prohibitive production costs and taxes, low incomes and soaring diesel prices. The action follows similar actions in France, Poland, Greece and other EU member states in recent weeks. In Senegal on Friday, a young man was killed during a demonstration against the postponement of presidential elections. The death of this college student was reported by an official from his university in the city of St. Louis. In Dakar, the country's capital, the police repressed demonstrators with tear gas to prevent them from reaching National Square. This first day of major nationwide protest was held against the parliament's decision to postpone presidential elections until December 15th, as requested by incumbent Macky Sall. The war raging in Sudan could leave over 700,000 children severely malnourished this year, the UN said on Friday, warning tens of thousands could die unless aid was dramatically increased. The United Nations Children's Agency, UNICEF, urged the world to stop turning a blind eye to the catastrophe sparked by the 10-month civil war. The consequences of the past 300 days means that more than 700,000 children are likely to suffer from the deadliest form of malnutrition this year, according to spokesman James Elder. The organization won't be able to treat more than 300,000 of them without improved access and additional support. China celebrates the New Lunar Year, a holiday that brings families together and practically paralyzes the country. The Spring Festival has the largest human migration as millions of people move to enjoy the festivities and be in family unity. Local media deploy operations to show what happens every year in these festivities and also take the opportunity to show the world the development and growth at the level of infrastructure and technology. These celebrations include cultural traditions that will last until February 16, and parades, traditional food, network, fireworks, and other festivities are present. Brazil celebrates the most important festival with numerous activities in several cities. The Brazilian Carnival is known as the most famous festivity of the South American giant and the most important in the world. It's made up of diverse elements and forms of cultural expression in each city, with the celebrations in Rio de Janeiro and Salvador de Bahia standing out for their colorfulness. The big parades are led by samba schools and enjoy a massive participation. The Carnival in Brazil has become a festive event of great proportions. Venezuela is also in Happy Carnival 2024. The festivity became a tradition with the realization of multiple parades, dances, and the popular customs. The cultural celebration was extended to the whole national territory. Among the festivities, the Carnival of Callao in the eastern state of Bolívar, which revolves around the comparsas with calypso rhythms, stands out. The Carnival of Callao was declared in 2016 as Intangible Heritage of Humanity by UNESCO. In Colombia, the Barranquilla Carnival is a major event. The festivity is considered the second most largest carnival in the world, with close to 3 million people, both visitors and locals, taking part in annually. The Barranquilla Carnival is an event in which all the cultural varieties of the Colombian Caribbean region are expressed. Some of the most traditional costumes of the Barranquilla Carnival are the marimonda, the garrabato, and the congo, and the monocuco.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on our social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.